Well, it's a different year, but same old pathetic Giants team. This team just never fails to disappoint us Giants fans. I mean, it's kind of incredible at this point, and I think it's pretty clear now. Besides that 2022 season, Daniel Jones just has not been a good quarterback. It doesn't help that his offensive line, provides him with no favors. In this game against the Vikings, was the offense good? Not really. But was it better than some of the, previous years? Yeah, it kind of was, which is kind of sad because it was still bad. Andrew Thomas is playing like an elite left tackle. He didn't allow a single pressure. John Runyon allowed 2 pressures, one of them being a sack. John Michael Schmitz allowed a pressure. Greg Van Roten allowed 4 pressures, and then Illuminor allowed 3 pressures. So it looks like there's a theme here. It's that right side of that offensive line that was giving them the most trouble. I know a lot of Giants fans, including myself, aren't big fans of Evan Neal, but is he really that much worse than Greg Van Roten? Like, Greg Van Roten is not a good guard. I would love to see Evan Neal try to play right guard just for a game, and if he's bad, stick Van Roten right back in that spot. But I'm just super curious to see if Evan Neal can play guard in the NFL. We've seen with another pitiful Giants tackle in Eric Flowers. He was absolutely terrible at tackle. He goes to Washington, they stick him at guard, and he's actually a serviceable offensive guard for the Commanders. And I'm curious if that can be the same thing with Evan Neal. I at least want to see it. But again, this offensive line just wasn't good enough. It's an improvement from last year, but still just not good enough aside from Andrew Thomas, who, like I said, is playing like an elite left tackle, and I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he's the only bright spot on that offensive line. I mean, John Michael Schmitz played solid, better than his rookie season last year, but, that's no excuse for Daniel Jones either. When he was, protected, he was making bad throws, bad reads, bad decisions. I mean, it just seemed like he wasn't throwing catchable balls. I believe, according to PFF, he had, 5 drops, or like receivers dropped 5 of his passes. But watching that game, it didn't seem like it was the receiver's fault, at least on 5 of them. It just looked like he wasn't throwing catchable balls. They're either low, too high, a little bit behind him. Like, he's just not accurate enough. And then not to mention, he just makes bad decisions. Now, I'll give him that first interception was not really his fault. It's a screen pass. It was just, more of a really good play by Van Ginkel. But that second interception in the end zone, I mean, you can't be doing that. It's Harrison Smith. I know he's a savvy safety and, he's got a lot of experience, but you can't be making that pass. And overall, I mean, that pass game, we already knew the run game was going to be a downgrade after losing Saquon Barkley. Like, Giants fans, including myself, already knew that. But we were hoping with the addition of Malik Neighbors and a revamped offensive line that Daniel Jones could actually do something in the passing game. And that just wasn't the case. I mean, he fed Malik Neighbors a good amount. He had 5 receptions for 66 yards, so on 7 targets. So, I mean, he was getting targets. Wan'Dale Robinson had 12 targets, 6 receptions for 44 yards. The big problem for me, though, is that we didn't push the ball downfield at all. And the offensive line held up a good amount to where you could have made some throws down the field. I believe Daniel Jones only had 1 big-time throw. Just try to stretch the field. The Vikings secondary is not good. They have a few bright spots in like Stephon Gilmore, who's up there in age. Same thing with Harrison Smith. But there's weaknesses in that Vikings secondary, and we didn't even try to exploit that. The run game was nothing special. Singletary had 37 yards on 10 attempts for a 3.7 average. Wan'Dale Robinson had a nice little end around. Eric Gray and Tyron Tracy both had two attempts. Nothing great. So again, we expected that. The run game is not going to be as good as it was last year, but overall this offense just was absolutely pitiful. Only 240 total yards. So that's got to change. That offense has got to change. We didn't even score a single touchdown. We had 2 field goals. Like, that's pathetic. And that's the theme of this video, is just pathetic. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, thinking that's going to be the bright spot of this team. It started off really good. Dexter Lawrence had a sack on, I believe it was Sam Darnold's first drop back. Great way to start the season off. What happens after that? Sam Darnold makes a dump off pass to, I'm not sure who it was, but Drew Phillips, the rookie cornerback, forced a fumble. Bobby Okereke picked it up, and we had the ball, I believe, on our own 30, maybe even in the red zone. and we still couldn't capitalize on that. Again, Daniel Jones just can't get the ball into the end zone. But the defense played well that first drive. And then after that, it was just dink-offs from Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, I believe, started the game like 12 for 12. Sam Darnold should not be doing that. I don't care how bad the secondary is. Sam Darnold should not be doing that. And, you know, the very bright spot of our team is our defensive line. Dexter Lawrence had a really, really good game. 6 pressures and a sack. That's amazing. But Brian Burns, who we brought in, who was, you know, our big signing, and someone who I'm a big fan of, only had 1 pressure that entire game. And granted, the Vikings' 2 tackles are really good in pass protection, but it's Brian Burns. We signed him and we traded for him because we thought he could be an elite edge rusher for us. And he just wasn't that. I believe he had like a 53 PFF grade, only 1 pressure. Like, you got to be better than that. Same thing with Kayvon Thibodeau. We thought since Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence is on that defensive line, Kayvon Thibodeau is going to get a lot of one-on-ones, and hopefully he can win majority of them. Kayvon Thibodeau only had 1 pressure, a 39 PFF grade. That defensive line just didn't play good enough. Dexter Lawrence did. Dexter Lawrence played great, and he's, you know, really becoming one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Him, Chris Jones, Quinnen Williams. It's kind of like a 3-way tie for me right now, but Dexter Lawrence, no complaints from him. But our 2 edge rushers have got to be better. Our secondary, like I said, was getting tore up at the beginning of the game. But believe it or not, we held Justin Jefferson to a very quiet game. I mean, he had, 4 receptions for 59 yards and a touchdown. And for Justin Jefferson's standards, that's a pretty bad game. Deonte Banks did a really nice job on him. And really, Justin Jefferson had 2 good plays. One was that, I believe it was like a 30-ish yard play on Deonte Banks. Obviously not a good play by Deonte Banks, but it's Justin Jefferson. You're going to give up some of those. And then also, I believe it was on like the 1 or 2 yard line on 4th down. We leave Justin Jefferson in single coverage. I don't care. Deonte Banks is in a second year. Hopefully he can have a breakout season, but he should not be guarding Justin Jefferson one-on-one on like the 2 yard line. It was a simple slant, boom, completion, touchdown. But besides that, Deonte Banks held Justin Jefferson to a very, very quiet night, and I'm really, really happy about what I've seen with Deonte Banks. Also, Cordell Flott only allowed 1 catch for 21 yards, which was a touchdown, the Jalen Nailor touchdown. But Cordell Flott also looked solid. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who was to blame for all these, catches for like 6-7 yards that Sam Darnold was just tearing us up with. I guess maybe the safety or the linebackers wasn't doing a good job. Bobby Okereke and Darius, I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. Is it Marifau? Muasau? Darius Muasau, I think is how you pronounce it. Maybe it was them that were giving up all the catches, because Drew Phillips, he had 3 defensive stops, a forced fumble, and only allowed 1 catch for 14 yards and only 16 snaps. So he didn't get in the game much, but when he did, he made a difference. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point during the season Drew Phillips takes over for Cordell Flott as that cornerback too. But really, our 3 cornerbacks didn't look terrible. Tyler Nubin only allowed 1 catch for 22 yards, so I really don't know who's to blame for all those catches early on, and that's what really hurt us. Like I said, Sam Darnold started out like 12 for 12. He ended the game 19 for 24 for 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. So, I mean, at the end of the game, not the best stat line, but when you look at the score, 28-6, it was obviously a good enough stat line. Aaron Jones also went for 94 yards on 14 attempts and a touchdown. So it seemed like every time that Dexter Lawrence was on the sideline, they were running the ball and having very, very good success with doing so. So really, if Dexter Lawrence isn't on that field, this defense is not good enough at all, especially in the run game. But overall, all 3 facets of the game, offense, defense, special teams, has got to be better. Especially that offense. That offensive line needs to hold up. Daniel Jones needs to get his shit together and hopefully have a turnaround in week 2 when we play the Commanders. Hopefully he has a bounce back week. Same with our offensive line. Hopefully they just keep gelling and getting better. I mean, like I said, not a great week 1 for the offensive line, but it's an upgrade. Hopefully Malik Neighbors gets more and more comfortable in this offense and can really take over games. Hopefully him and Daniel Jones can build chemistry, throughout the season. Devin Singletary, like I said, he's not nowhere near Saquon Barkley, but he's a good enough running back to where we should be getting at least some positive runs. And then that defensive line just has to create more pressures aside from just Dexter Lawrence. And I think the Washington's offensive line definitely has some holes in it. So if we struggle to create pressure on Jaden Daniels next week, I'm going to have some serious concerns about this revamped defensive line. But that's going to do it. Like I said, it's a new year, same old pathetic Giants team. Let's see how they perform in week 2. That's all I got to say.